Welcome to TGS, Transform, Grow, Succeed. This podcast is about your work as a caring professional and the ideas that we can share to elevate and expand what we offer to those we serve. My name is Dr. Tim Gravoy, Executive Director of TGS Educational Consulting, and I'm excited to introduce Leslie Anway, Director of Resilient Schools, a program of the Pima County School Superintendent's Office. Leslie is first and foremost a parent and a grandparent, and began her career as a teacher and then a school psychologist. Later, Leslie worked at the Arizona Department of Education, supporting their safety and school wellness program. And last February, Leslie joined the Pima County School Superintendent's Office as the Director of Resilient Schools, aligning perfectly with her personal mission of helping whole children learn and grow, and systems change as well. Leslie is a trainer for the neurosequential model and is currently completing her advanced training in the neurosequential model, the leading framework for supporting children, youth, and adults who have experienced traumatic events. So first off, Leslie, did I get all that right?
Yes, you did.
I
think you got it all.
Excellent. Yeah. Now, Leslie, I invited you on the show to talk about your work, helping school leaders view themselves as change agents, particularly with the really juicy idea of leading from the middle. And Leslie, I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about what leading from the middle is and what that might mean for school leaders.
Yeah, so I think this idea of leading from the middle really came front and center for me as I was doing work around the state, working with some of our administrators, but also with some of our school mental health professionals, counselors, social workers, school psychologists, and teachers as well. But also having been on the front lines myself in schools too, I saw how sometimes there was this desire for system change, and there's a desire we need to do something more and something better for our kids, but I don't know if me as an individual, I don't know if I have that power to do this. So this leading from the middle really is giving voice to all individuals within a system and saying you do have some say in this, and empowering people to have that voice and that input around systems change. And as we know, a lot of times our best leaders empower their people to have that voice. And so it's kind of works, I think, synergistically, so that if you've got people working, from the bottom and then people working from the top and then it kind of pulls to the middle. So it's kind of that idea that we all can be change agents within a system. So, but we've got to have that, we kind of have to have that supportive administrative environment around us a lot of times to make that happen.
So the idea then from leading from the middle is just understanding that there is a structure in any kind of organization, and at any time any one of us might find ourselves at any kind of part of it. But generally speaking, most of us are kind of at the middle of it, where we have folks that we serve or folks that we might supervise, and then folks that are supporting and supervising us in that. And often, it's common to kind of just to think of our role as just kind of doing our job. But we are able to, but at least it sounds like what you're saying is that kind of looking around us, identifying things that we'd like to change and do something different with, and recognizing our own agency and power to do that.
I think that's exactly it. Yes, because I do think, and a lot of times in education, there's kind of that thought that, well, within my role, I really don't have that capacity. So within my role and my day-to-day duties, while I would love to have more of that capacity to change something, I don't have it. And so I think that's what it is.
Why do you think that is, that people have that perception is so common, that I can't make a difference or I can't change a system on my own? What is it about kind of education as a system that makes it so common for that perception to exist?
I think it's multi-factored right now. I think there's a lot of, in education, there's a lot of business as usual. We've done business as usual for a long time. And then new things pop in, and it's let's try this and let's try this and let's try this. So, and that people kind of get in the mindset of this is just the way we've always done it. This is the way we've always done it. We're going to try some new initiative, see if that works. And then we usually fall back on, well, but this is the way we've always done it. And so I think there's that in there. But the other thing too, I think, is that right now, our educators are overworked. It's just, they have so much on their plates. We're understaffed in our state, across the nation, and so people are filling multiple roles, and so I think there's just too much on their plates, and so I think that plays into it as well.
Just the sheer size of what the job is in any one of our roles is very, very big right now. It's enormous, almost too big to really think to have any extra bandwidth to kind of think about transformation exactly. And so when you're talking then about like a systems change, what are you actually encouraging leaders to do?
So because my passion is teaching to the whole child and making sure that our systems are looking at whole child education and not just to focus on academics, because we know that our kids cannot learn until we have ensured that their social and emotional well-being is taken care of, that we're looking at things through a restorative and a trauma responsive lens. So that is the type of system change advocacy that I am always promoting. Absolutely, I think it's something that is possible. We've seen other countries do it. We've seen systems transformation in countries like Finland, in Portugal, Canada. So we've seen those systems change happen, and we know how their process, and so we know how those systems change happened. So we know it's doable.
Well, you know what? Maybe that's a good time for us to take a quick break, because I'd love to talk about that a bit more. It's just that if we're going to think and encourage each individual educator in a school system to think of themselves as a change agent, then what does that actually mean, given the reality of I've not met an educator these days who's feeling like they got gobs of extra time and resources. I haven't met that teacher or that principal at all lately. And so thinking about then, all right, what do we do? What do we do to even get started? And what does that actually mean? Let's take that break and let's have that conversation when we come back.
Okay.
Have you ever wanted to spend some time with colleagues from around the state, connecting and learning in a fun, supportive environment where you feel seen, heard, and appreciated? Ever wanted to learn some concrete strategies to help you grow your own resilience as well as that of the youth you work with? Ever wanted to learn from some incredible national and statewide speakers about topics that lead to increased levels of well-being, physical, emotional, and social safety, academic performance, and overall life success? Topics like increasing staff and student motivation, building learning spaces that facilitate belonging and connection, empowering students to foster self-control and manage their emotions, and many more. You asked, and we answered. Register now for the 2023 Celebrating Resilience Summit, hosted by the Pima County School Superintendent's Office. This event will be held at the Casino del Sol on Friday, October 27th and Saturday, October 28th. All meals are included. There will be over 30 statewide community organizations in attendance as exhibitors. We will be hosting multiple book signings. There will be raffle gifts for attendees and so much more. Group discounts are available for any groups of 5 or more. Rural discounts are also available for educators or youth workers coming from rural areas. To register and for more information, go to the Pima County School Superintendent's Office website at schools.pima.gov. Once again, that is schools.pima.gov. You can also find our event on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at Pima School SUP. That's at Pima School SUP. We can't wait to see you at the 2023 Celebrating Resilience Summit.
All right, well, welcome back. So we were talking with Leslie Anway, Director of Resilient Schools, a program of the Pima County School Superintendent's Office, about seeing ourselves as change agents. And Leslie, one of the things that's also true is that right now, I've not met a fresh as a daisy educator. We are crispy. We are overworked. We have very limited bandwidth to manage the roles that we are currently in. And then when we think about then, oh, and by the way, I am also supposed to be take some kind of responsibility for transforming the system for the better on my own. That seems, well, it can seem daunting. How does that work? Like, practically speaking, like what does that work in just our day-to-day practice?
So one of the things that when I have worked with schools, with educators, a lot of the times they'll say, right, here's my standards. Here's what I've got to get through. Now they're telling me I've got to do restorative practices. That's in this bucket over here. Now they're telling me I've got to do social emotional learning. That's in this bucket over here. It feels like now I'm getting piled on top of. Now I've got one more thing, one more thing, one more thing. So some of what I try to, even as a reframe, try to help educators see is that, okay, within 5 to 10 minutes, we can easily pull all of these practices together and create something that seamlessly integrates into your content that covers all of these things. And then ultimately, because what you're doing then is regulating your kids, you're regulating yourself, and the behavior problems go way down. So ultimately what you're doing is you're creating a lot more time on the back end for yourself. And so I have seen that in practice, that by creating a 5-minute space at the beginning of every class to regulate kids, to regulate their brains, to regulate our teachers as well, then that has seamlessly created a space for all of these other practices to flow in, restorative, social emotional learning, all of these things to flow in to the content, into climate and culture. And ultimately, it creates a lot more time for our teachers.
Well, I think that's a really important thing to notice, because the fact is that the social and emotional learning box that has showed up in it's a literal box, and the box is full of stuff, and the box is full of more stuff than anybody can actually get through in a day. I wonder if there's that. Yes, absolutely. As individual educators, especially if we've been doing this for a while, we're used to reframing that. We're used to kind of accepting what can and cannot actually get done in 52 minutes in a period, and weave our magic to make it happen no matter what, through creative non-compliance, whatever we got to do. One of the things I'm wondering is, what if we as school leaders, though, stopped handing teachers giant boxes that are impossible to implement, and maybe just started from the very small effective levers instead?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. I think that's exactly what I think we're talking about. So instead of these big, this box of SEL over here, this box of trauma responsive practices, and this box that all seems to pile and stack up on top of our teachers, right? It's saying, you know what? We are going to create this little tiny space of time, or let's give our teachers actually the time to meet and form connections and create relationships with each other, that time to process. And because we know for our teachers, when they feel more connected and that they belong more, the same as for our students, that also creates a systems change, because we're looking at climate, culture, environment. And so, but it's those little tiny things. But we have to look at, okay, is there time to do that? Is there space to do that? And that is actually social emotional learning, right? Because we're creating more self-awareness. We're creating the social awareness, and a lot of those components that fall under there, and that really is restorative as well. So there's some really easy, small, simple practices that can check every single one of those boxes under a lot of those initiatives.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's one of the things that perhaps could be added a whole lot more kind of in the conversation, because it certainly comes up in systems change. When we talk about systems change, very often the conversation is about very small levers that can have larger outcomes, that perhaps we can find the most effective thing that takes the least amount of effort and resources and time, do that, and then that's going to be really helpful. And it might be just as simple as creating space for a 5-minute check-in at a staff meeting, or something like that, or take 5 minutes to send a kind text to someone on staff. Those are sound almost cheesy to mention, but are very powerful SEL strategies. And then never giving teachers a giant box that they'll never have time to open anyway. That seems
Right.
that seems like a just on its own a much more respectful way of going about that. And then kind of contrasting that is a lot of times I hear system change and I think big. I think that somebody is expecting us to do a very big thing that's going to require lots of heavy work, heavy lifting, and is going to be a very big departure from business as usual. And sometimes that's needed. But it sounds like you're talking about system change in kind of a smaller way.
Yeah, I mean, I think both are needed, because I do think we need, but obviously the other is a top-down kind of change. But I work with a couple superintendents, and there's a superintendent that I work with up in Cottonwood, and just one of the changes that he made across the board was, I've got stressed out parents, I've got stressed out students. We are going to try this as an experiment. We're going to remove homework, because that is one of the really effective changes that was made in some of those countries who are doing amazing things with their academics. Removed homework, and guess what? Stress went down, academics went up. Mm-hmm. So there was absolutely an increase in reading, writing, and math skills when homework was removed for a year. Mm-hmm. That happened in our state, but a superintendent, and that was a systems change, and that was removing one thing. So of course that has to come from, that's a top-down change, but it's a pretty simple, small thing that was a change. When we're looking at bottom up, it's a little bit different, but.
Well, I mean, there are teachers, individual teachers who, as we're wrestling with the homework issue now, who are just choosing not to assign homework.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that can feel small. Sometimes it's not, because there's a lot of parents that, I'm on the no homework team right now. And as far as I'm concerned, I want to spend time with my kids, doing stuff with my kids. I don't know that we necessarily need to do more than the reading together and the conversations around numbers that we're already having. However, there's a lot of families that honestly judge the quality of the school by how much homework their kids get. And if it's a lot, it must be a good school. And so there's a lot of kind of reframing and messaging that has to happen that sometimes makes those small changes not so small. Yeah. But we got a superintendent in Cottonwood that just no homework, and we solved more than one issue, and actually had some really unintended and surprising results.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Can you tell me then about some of those, if you could wave a wand, and just thinking of there is no typical school district, but if you think of a typical Arizona school district, if we're going to make up a cartoon character of one, and just kind of wave a wand somehow and say, system looks like this now, what would be some of the things that you would like to see in that system?
Well, I'm also on the no homework boat. So I would say no homework. I just think most of our kids are overloaded. I think they've got way too much on their plates. I think it leads to, obviously there are those kids who want more. So I think for those who want a little bit more, we provide them the option. But I think removing that, taking that off the plates, it's because we know it's not just our kids, it's the parents who also take on the burden of the homework. And then it prevents that family bonding and the things that happen in the evening. So shorten school days, because I think that we have a lot of wasted time in school. So we shorten school days for our kids. That's also something that Finland and other countries have done very successfully, and their academics are ranked way higher than our countries. So I would see shorten school days. I would see mandatory regulation at the beginning of every single class period after every transition. So a short regulation period, maybe 3 minutes, to regulate the brain of our kids, so they're actually in a learning place, so they're able to receive information. Because that covers multiple. I mean, it checks off multiple boxes. It's a regulation activity, but it's social emotional, and it's it covers all those things. So regulation at the start of every class, that was actually something that I did put in place at an alternative school with really great results. And then I would say restorative practices. That I think that those are critical, implementing restorative practices, and then staff cohorts. And I would create staff cohorts where staff had the ability to meet on a regular basis in teams, where they had the opportunity to reflect, to connect, to just create that sense of I have a voice, in this school, and that I'm seen, that I'm heard, and that I'm a part, and that I belong.
Well, it sounds like an absolutely beautiful place to work and certainly to learn and grow as a child or a youth. Leslie, let's go ahead and take one last break, and then when we come back, we'll have a final thought from Leslie on systems change and how we can reframe our own roles to be change agents in our organizations. Welcome back, Leslie. It's been great to talk to you today. And just given all the ground we've covered, what final thought might you have for us as we think about stepping into our own power in our organizations as change agents?
Well, I frequently see these educators out there who are doing such amazing work. They're tapped in, they are doing the work that they know is best for students. But sometimes they feel like they're a little bit constrained within their system. So what I would encourage is that, just within your own power, within the constraints you might have in your own systems, I just encourage everybody to do what you know is best for kids. So if you think that you can put a few regulation practices in place, do that. If you think that your kids need a little bit more outside time, go ahead and try that. Maybe try, a week or two without homework and take some data, collect some data, because when you collect data and you're able to show those results, that's pretty convincing. So I would just say, just step into that. And, I think once you reconnect with that joy, the passion, the reason why you do the job that you do, then I think that kind of all lines up.
Well, Leslie, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you for just sharing your experience with our listeners. And I hope you enjoyed our show, everyone. And I hope you reach out to me or to Leslie with your thoughts on our conversation. You can find Leslie at our LinkedIn profile. And make sure that the LinkedIn profile link will be in our show notes. And you can find me at www.tgseducationalconsulting.com. If you're an educator supporting students and you're looking to create some kind of systems change somehow, some way, and you do something to step into your power and make a change, I would be delighted to know about it. Drop me in the comments and let me know how it's resonating for you. Until next time, may you have many opportunities to be as generous with yourself as you are to those you serve and find a beautiful way to live your values out loud.